The sound of his hand hitting my face echoed through our kitchen like a gunshot. I'm Serafina Blackwood, 32 years old, and I thought I knew the man I married 3 years ago. I was wrong. Give me those keys, Sarah.
Now.
Marcus stood over me, his face twisted with rage I'd never seen before. My cheek burned where he'd struck me, but the pain in my chest hurt worse. Have you ever had someone you trusted completely destroy that trust in a single moment? That's exactly what happened when I found the text messages on his phone an hour earlier. Messages to my best friend Delilah. Messages that made my stomach turn. This house belongs to both of us now, he snarled, reaching for my grandmother's antique key ring. The Victorian home I'd inherited had been in my family for 4 generations. It was supposed to be our fresh start together. I backed away, clutching the keys to my chest. Marcus, we need to talk about this. About Delilah. About what I saw. His laugh was cold and bitter. Talk. There's nothing to talk about. You're going to give me those keys, and then you're going to sign these papers. He threw a stack of legal documents on the kitchen table. My hands shook as I picked up the papers. Real estate transfer documents. Loan applications. All with my signature already filled in. But I hadn't signed any of these. Do you know that feeling when your whole world shifts under your feet? When everything you believed was a lie? Like this video if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you loved. Share it if you think others need to hear this story. And comment below, have you ever discovered something that changed everything? The signature on these papers looked exactly like mine, but I'd never seen them before in my life. How is that possible? 3 years ago, Marcus had been different. Charming. Romantic. He'd proposed to me in my grandmother's garden, surrounded by her prize-winning roses. I want to spend forever in this magical place with you, he'd whispered. Now I wondered if he'd been planning this all along. I met Marcus at a coffee shop downtown. He'd spilled his drink on my laptop bag and bought me a new latte to apologize. His smile had been so genuine, his laugh so warm. Within 6 months, he'd moved into the Victorian house with me. Your grandmother would have loved him, I told myself back then. Grandma Rose had raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 8. She'd taught me to trust people, to see the good in everyone. Standing in my kitchen now, holding forged documents, I realized how wrong we both had been. You've been planning this, I said, my voice barely a whisper. How long, Marcus? How long have you been lying to me? He straightened his tie like he was getting ready for a business meeting. Does it matter? What matters is that you're going to cooperate. Sign the real papers willingly, or things get complicated for you. Have you ever realized that someone's love was just an act? That every sweet moment was calculated? The way he stood there so calm, so cold. This wasn't a man who'd just lost his temper. This was someone who'd been wearing a mask for 3 years. I thought about all the times he'd insisted on handling our finances. All the times he'd suggested I was too emotional to make important decisions. All the times he'd isolated me from my friends, including Delilah.
Wait.
Including Delilah. Comment below if you've ever realized you were being manipulated. Hit that subscribe button because this story gets darker. My blood turned to ice as I remembered something. Marcus hadn't tried to keep me away from Delilah. He'd actually encouraged our friendship. He'd even suggested she visit more often. What if their affair wasn't a betrayal of our marriage? What if it was part of the plan? My hands trembled as I walked through our house, seeing it with new eyes. Every room felt different now, like strangers had been living here instead of my husband and me. In the living room, I noticed things I'd never seen before. A small black device tucked behind the picture frame on the mantel. Another one attached under the coffee table. Cameras. Hidden cameras everywhere. Have you ever felt like someone was watching you, only to discover they actually were? The violation cuts deeper than any physical wound. My legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the couch. How long had he been recording me? What had he seen? What had he heard? I thought about all the phone calls I'd made to my lawyer about updating my will. All the conversations with my financial advisor about my inheritance. All the private moments I'd thought were mine alone. Marcus had been upstairs during most of those calls. I'd trusted him to give me privacy. Instead, He'd been listening to every word. The room spun around me as I realized the truth. This wasn't just about stealing my house. He knew exactly how much I was worth. He knew about the trust fund from my grandmother. He knew about the life insurance policies. He knew everything. Feeling a little dizzy, sweetheart? Marcus's voice came from the doorway. He leaned against the frame, watching me with cold calculation. If someone you trusted had been spying on you, what would you do? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like this video. The cameras, I whispered. How long? He checked his watch like we were discussing dinner plans. Long enough. You really should drink more water, Sarah. You've been looking so pale lately. So confused. That's when I noticed the glass of water he'd set on the coffee table. The same way he brought me water every morning with my vitamins. The same way he'd been taking care of me for months. My stomach dropped as pieces clicked together. The headaches I'd been having. The memory lapses. The times I'd felt dizzy and disoriented. Share this video if you think others need to know how dangerous hidden manipulation can be. I stared at that glass of water, and Marcus smiled. Not the warm smile I'd fallen in love with. This smile was predatory. Drink up, he said softly. Doctor's orders. But I wasn't sick, was I? I was being poisoned. The next morning, I pretended to drink the water Marcus brought me. Instead, I poured it into the potted plant by my bedside when he left for work. I needed a clear head to think. Everything made sense now. The dizzy spells that had started 6 months ago. The forgetfulness that made me second-guess myself. The mood swings that Marcus had used to convince me I was unstable. Have you ever been gaslit so thoroughly that you questioned your own sanity? It's a special kind of hell. I drove to Dr. Peterson's office and demanded blood work. I think someone's been drugging me, I told her straight out. She looked concerned but professional. That's a serious accusation, Sarah. What makes you think that? I told her everything. The cameras, the forged documents, the sudden personality change in my husband. She listened without judgment and drew 3 vials of blood. We'll have results in 24 hours, she promised. In the meantime, don't consume anything you haven't prepared yourself. That evening, I made my own dinner and watched Marcus carefully. He kept offering me things. A glass of wine. Some of his homemade soup. Even breath mints. You're acting strange, he said, studying my face. Are you feeling all right? For months, I'd been the confused one. The sick one. The unreliable one whose word couldn't be trusted. But sitting there with a clear head, I saw him differently. Marcus wasn't concerned about my health. He was concerned that his plan wasn't working. Like this video if you've ever had someone try to control you through manipulation. Around midnight, I heard him on the phone in his study. I crept closer to listen. She's not responding to the medication anymore, he whispered. We need to move faster. Get your mother here by tomorrow. My blood froze. His mother Eleanor lived across the country. Why would she need to come here urgently? Comment below what you think is about to happen, and hit subscribe for the next chapter. The conversation continued, and I pressed my ear to the door. Once Eleanor arrives, we can have her declared incompetent. The paperwork's already prepared. Then the house is ours, free and clear. He wasn't just stealing from me. He was planning to have me committed. Dr. Peterson called the next morning with results that confirmed my worst fears. You have significant levels of benzodiazepines in your system, Sarah. Someone has been drugging you with anxiety medication, likely for months. The room tilted around me. How much? Enough to cause confusion, memory problems, and dependence. If you'd continued taking these doses, you could have had serious health complications. Her voice was grave. This is attempted poisoning. You need to call the police. But I couldn't call the police yet. Not when Marcus had 3 years' worth of recordings that could be edited to make me look unstable. Not when he had forged documents with my signature. Have you ever been in a situation where the truth sounded so crazy that no one would believe you? I drove home in a daze, my mind finally clear for the first time in months. Everything I'd blamed on stress or hormones had been Marcus slowly poisoning me. When I walked into the house, I found suitcases by the door and heard voices in the kitchen. Eleanor's sharp, critical voice that had always made me uncomfortable. "She looks terrible," Eleanor was saying. "Clearly not taking care of herself. The poor thing needs professional help." I stayed hidden in the hallway, listening to them plan my future. "The facility in Connecticut is discreet," Marcus replied. "Once she's there, we'll have power of attorney. The house can be sold within the month." They weren't just talking about having me committed. They were talking about making me disappear. Share the story if you think others need to know how dangerous these situations can be. Eleanor's voice got colder. "What if she fights it?" "She won't be able to," Marcus said confidently. "Not in her condition. The doctor's reports I've prepared show a clear pattern of mental decline. Her own physician will have to agree." That's when I realized how deep this conspiracy went. Marcus hadn't just been drugging me. He'd been documenting my drug state, creating evidence of mental illness. Leave a comment if you've ever felt trapped with no way out. I backed away from the kitchen, my heart pounding. I needed help, but who would believe me? And then I remembered something. Before she died, my grandmother had given me a key to her old jewelry box. "If you're ever in real trouble," she whispered, "remember that some secrets are worth keeping safe." I'd never understood what she meant. Until now. I crept upstairs to find that jewelry box, praying my grandmother had left me something that could save my life. Eleanor's presence changed everything in the house overnight. Where Marcus had been subtle in his cruelty, his mother was bold and vicious. "Sarah, darling," she said at breakfast, her voice dripping with false concern. "You look absolutely dreadful. When's the last time you showered?" I'd showered that morning, but she didn't wait for an answer. She turned to Marcus like I wasn't even there. "She's worse than you described. We can't wait any longer. Have you ever been spoken about like you were invisible? Like you didn't matter at all?" Eleanor had been in my home for 12 hours, and she was already rearranging furniture and throwing away my belongings. "This old junk has to go," she announced, holding up my grandmother's antique lamp. "That was my grandmother's," I protested weakly, still playing the confused wife role. "Exactly. Old, useless clutter. Just like that ugly jewelry box upstairs. I've already called the donation truck." My heart stopped. The jewelry box with my grandmother's secret was scheduled for pickup. Marcus watched this interaction with satisfaction. "Mother knows best, sweetheart. She's dealt with situations like this before." Like this video if you've ever had someone try to erase your family history. That afternoon, while they thought I was napping, I overheard Eleanor on the phone. "Yes, Dr. Williams, I understand the procedure. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Make sure the ambulance is discreet." She was scheduling my involuntary commitment for the next day. But what chilled me most was what she said next. "This is the 4th time we've had to do this. The other 3 went smoothly." Comment below what you think happened to the other 3, and don't forget to subscribe. The other 3? Marcus had done this before. I wasn't his first victim. I was just the latest in a pattern of women he'd married, drugged, and destroyed. That night, I waited until they were both asleep before creeping to my grandmother's jewelry box. My hands shook as I inserted the key, praying the donation truck hadn't come early. Inside, beneath the costume jewelry and old photos, I found an envelope with my name on it. My grandmother's handwriting. "My dearest Sarah," the letter began. "If you're reading this, then you're in the kind of trouble I hoped you'd never face. But you're stronger than you know, and you're not alone. Have you ever felt like someone from beyond was reaching out to save you?" The letter continued. 40 years ago, I married a man who tried to steal everything from me. He drugged me, isolated me, and almost succeeded in having me committed. But I learned something important. Evil men rarely work alone, and they always repeat their patterns. My grandmother had faced the exact same situation I was in now. In this box, you'll find the evidence I gathered against him. More importantly, you'll find the contact information for women who helped me fight back. Call Minerva Stone. Tell her Rose sent you. At the bottom of the box was a business card, so old it was yellowing. Minerva Stone, attorney at law, specializing in cases others won't take. There was also a photograph of my grandmother with 5 other women, all holding documents and looking victorious. On the back, The Survivors Club, 1983. Like this video if you believe in the power of women helping women. I dial Minerva's number, praying it still worked after all these years. Stone Law Office answered a crisp voice. It was past midnight, but she sounded wide awake. Miss Stone? My grandmother was Rose Blackwood. She said to tell you Rose sent me. There was a pause, then warmth flooded her voice. Sarah, I've been expecting your call for 3 years. Share this video if you think everyone deserves someone in their corner. Expecting it? Your grandmother asked me to watch over you when she got sick. I know about Marcus. I know about Eleanor. And, honey, I know about the other wives. My legs gave out, and I slid down the wall to sit on the floor. How many others were there? I whispered. Minerva's voice turned steel cold. Marcus Thompson has married and destroyed 6 women in the last 15 years. 3 are dead. 2 disappeared. You're number 7, but you're not going to be another victim. The man I'd loved didn't even exist. Marcus Thompson was a serial predator. Marcus's real name is Martin Thorne, Minerva explained. He changes identities between victims. Eleanor isn't his mother. She's his partner. They've been running this con for decades. Everything I thought I knew crumbled around me. Partners? They target women with inherited property, especially houses. Eleanor plays the concerned mother-in-law while Martin plays the devoted husband. They drug the wives, document their mental decline, then have them committed or killed. Have you ever discovered that your entire reality was a carefully constructed lie? Minerva's voice softened slightly. Your grandmother suspected something when you first brought him around. She hired me to investigate him, but she died before we could warn you. I thought about all those times Grandma Rose had seemed worried about Marcus. All the questions she'd asked that I dismissed as old-fashioned concern. She knew, I whispered. She knew, and she prepared for this day. Rose set up a trust fund that Marcus can access, no matter what happens to you. She also gathered evidence about his previous crimes. The room spun as I processed this information. My grandmother had been protecting me even after death. What evidence? Photos, medical records, death certificates that don't add up. Your grandmother was thorough. She documented everything about wife number 4, Sarah Chin, who supposedly died of a heart attack at 28. Comment below if you've ever had someone watch over you without you knowing it. 28. My voice cracked. These weren't random victims. They were young women like me. Sarah's family never believed the heart attack story. Your grandmother connected with them, and with the families of the other victims. We've been building a case for years. Hope flickered in my chest for the first time in days. You mean I'm not alone? Honey, you've got an army behind you. The question is, are you ready to fight back? Like this video if you're ready to see justice served. Through my bedroom window, I could see the lights were still on in Marcus's study. He and Eleanor were probably planning my final destruction. But they had no idea that their 7th victim had just become their worst nightmare. Tell me what I need to do, I said to Minerva. First, we need to get you somewhere safe. Then we're going to give Marcus and Eleanor exactly what they deserve. The next morning, I played my role perfectly. Confused, dizzy, and helpless. Eleanor had already called the ambulance for my psychiatric emergency at 2 o'clock. Poor thing, she said to Marcus, loud enough for me to hear. She's getting worse by the hour. It's really the kindest thing we can do. But while they planned my commitment, Minerva was setting a different plan in motion. The police will need evidence they can't deny, she'd explained during our midnight call. We're going to let them think they've won, right up until the moment they lose everything. Have you ever had to pretend to be weak when you're actually preparing to fight? At noon, I excused myself for a nap. Instead, I slipped out the back door to meet Minerva's associate, a private investigator named Jake Morrison, at the neighbor's house. Mrs. Henderson, my elderly neighbor, had always liked me. When Jake explained the situation, she didn't hesitate to help. I knew that man was trouble, she said firmly. Too smooth, too perfect. Real love doesn't look like a performance. From her upstairs window, we could see directly into my kitchen where Eleanor was crushing pills into a glass of orange juice. Jake's camera captured every second of it. "This is attempted murder," he said quietly, still filming. "Even if the previous charges don't stick, this will put them both away." Like this video if you believe bad people always reveal their true nature eventually. We also filmed Eleanor going through my grandmother's papers, looking for bank account information. We recorded Marcus on the phone with someone called Dr. Williams, discussing my treatment plan at the facility. Every crime was documented. Every lie was recorded. At 1:45 p.m., the ambulance arrived early. Share this video if you think justice sometimes needs a helping hand. I walked back into my house through the front door, right as the paramedics were getting their stretcher ready. "There she is," Eleanor announced dramatically. "She's been having episodes all morning. Completely delusional." Marcus put his arm around me, playing the concerned husband. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart. These nice people are going to help you feel better." But as the paramedics approached, I smiled. "Actually," I said clearly, "I'm feeling perfectly fine. But I think you two might need medical attention after what's about to happen." That's when the police cars pulled up outside. The look of shock on Marcus's face was worth every terrifying moment I'd endured. Eleanor went pale as officers surrounded the house. "Sarah Blackwood?" Detective Martinez approached with a warm smile. "Ms. Stone sent us. We understand you have some evidence to share." "I certainly do." I pulled out my phone, which had been recording our entire conversation. "Would you like to hear my husband and his partner discussing their plan to murder me? Have you ever seen someone's lies catch up with them in real time?" Marcus tried to maintain his act. "Officers, my wife has been having serious mental health issues. She's not thinking clearly." "That's interesting," Detective Martinez replied, "because we just finished testing the orange juice in your kitchen. Funny thing about crushing up sleeping pills, it leaves residue." Eleanor made a run for it. She got about 10 feet before Officer Chin tackled her on my grandmother's rose bushes. The irony wasn't lost on me. "You have the right to remain silent," Officer Chin announced as she cuffed Eleanor. Marcus was still trying to talk his way out of it when Detective Martinez held up a folder thick with documents. "Martin Thorne, you're under arrest for the murders of Sarah Chin, Lisa Rodriguez, and Amy Foster. You're also charged with the attempted murder of Sarah Blackwood and fraud in connection with at least 12 property thefts." Like this video if you love seeing bullies get what they deserve. As they led him away, Marcus looked back at me with pure hatred. The mask had finally slipped completely. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Actually," I called out, "it really is. Your other victims' families say hello." Standing on my grandmother's porch, I watched the police cars drive away with the two people who'd tried to destroy me. But my phone was buzzing with a text that made my blood run cold. Comment below what you think that text message said, and subscribe to see how this story ends. The message was from an unknown number. "Martin had friends. You should have kept quiet. We know where you live." The nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning a new chapter. 3 days after Marcus's arrest, my house felt like a fortress under siege. Detective Martinez had assigned a patrol car to drive by every hour, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. The threatening texts kept coming. Different numbers, same message. I should have stayed quiet. Have you ever won a battle only to realize the war was just beginning? Minerva arrived at my house with a woman I didn't recognize. Tall, confident, with the kind of presence that commanded attention. "Sarah, meet Diana Foster." Amy Foster was her daughter. My breath caught. Amy was one of Marcus's murder victims. Diana's handshake was firm, her eyes steel gray with determination. "That monster took my baby girl. But because of your courage, he'll never hurt another family." "I'm so sorry for your loss," I said, meaning every word. "Don't be sorry. Be ready." Diana's voice was matter-of-fact. "Martin's criminal network is bigger than the police realized. They're not going to let this slide." She spread photos across my kitchen table. Men in expensive suits, women with cold eyes, all connected to Marcus's operation. "This is Vincent Torres, the lawyer who helped forge documents. This is Rebecca Walsh, the fake doctor who signed commitment papers. And this," she pointed to a photo of a man with dead shark eyes, is Cameron Phillips. He's the one sending you those texts. Like this video if you believe in facing your fears head-on. What do they want? You dead, Diana said bluntly. You're the first victim who survived to testify. If Martin goes to trial, the whole network gets exposed. Share this video if you think some fights are worth the risk. Minerva leaned forward. But here's what they don't know. Your grandmother didn't just help one victim. She created an entire network of survivors and families. We've been waiting 15 years for this moment. Outside, a car engine revved loudly. Too loudly. Diana was already moving toward the window. That's not the patrol car. A black sedan sat in my driveway, engine running. Cameron Phillips stepped out, and he wasn't alone. Sarah, Diana said calmly, remember what I said about being ready? This was it. The final confrontation was about to begin. Call 911, Diana whispered, but she didn't sound panicked. She sounded prepared. I dialed emergency services while watching Diana and Minerva move with surprising coordination. These women had planned for this moment. This is exactly what happened to Amy, Diana said, checking her phone. They tried to scare her into silence first. When that didn't work, they escalated. Cameron Phillips knocked on my front door, like he was selling insurance. Polite, non-threatening. Deadly. Have you ever faced the moment when running was no longer an option? Ms. Blackwood? I think we need to have a conversation about your recent accusations. Diana positioned herself by the back door while Minerva stayed near the kitchen window. They moved like a team that had done this before. Don't answer, Minerva mouthed to me. I know you're in there, Sarah. This can go easy or hard. Your choice. The doorknob turned. He had a key. Of course he did. Marcus probably gave him 1 month ago. Cameron walked into my house like he owned it, followed by 2 other men. One carried a medical bag. The other had his hand inside his jacket. Hello, Sarah. You've caused us quite a problem. Like this video if you've ever had to choose between fear and courage. The police are on their way, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. He smiled. No, they're not. We have someone monitoring the dispatch calls. Your 911 call was redirected. My blood turned to ice. How deep did this corruption go? Here's what's going to happen, Cameron continued. You're going to have a tragic accident. Grief over your husband's arrest, combined with your documented mental health issues, led to an unfortunate overdose. The man with the medical bag opened it, revealing syringes and vials. Comment below if you think Sarah has one more trick up her sleeve. That's when Diana stepped out from behind the kitchen door. Actually, she said conversationally, here's what's really going to happen. She held up her phone, which was live streaming everything to Facebook. Say hello to 15,000 viewers, Cameron. They're all recording this on their phones. Cameron's confident smile faltered as he realized he'd walked into a trap. But the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard was coming from outside. Real police sirens, getting closer by the second. You set us up, Cameron snarled, but his panic was showing. The man with the medical bag was already backing toward the door. We learned from the best, Diana replied calmly. Your network taught us that the only way to beat predators is to be smarter than they are. The Facebook livestream was exploding with comments. Viewers were sharing it, recording it, making it impossible to cover up. Have you ever seen justice arrive in real time? Detective Martinez burst through my front door with 6 officers behind him. Nobody move. Hands where I can see them. Cameron tried to run, but Mrs. Henderson had been watching from her window. She'd positioned her car to block my driveway the moment she saw the black sedan arrive. That's the man who threatened our Sarah, she called out, pointing directly at Cameron. The officer with the medical bag tried to dump the evidence, but it was too late. Everything was on video, being shared across social media faster than they could contain it. Cameron Phillips, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, witness intimidation, and about 12 other charges we're still counting. As they cuffed him, Cameron looked at me with pure rage. You have no idea what you've started. Like this video if you believe ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Actually, I do. I held up my grandmother's letter. My grandmother started this 15 years ago. I'm just finishing what she began. Detective Martinez approached me as they loaded the suspects into patrol cars. Ms. Blackwood, we're going to need you to testify in what's looking like the biggest organized crime case the state has ever seen. I'll testify, I said without hesitation. For Amy, for Sarah, for Lisa, and for every woman who didn't survive to tell her story. Share this video if you think some battles are worth fighting, no matter the cost. But as the police cars drove away, I noticed something that made my heart race with excitement rather than fear. Cars were pulling up all along my street. Women were getting out, walking toward my house. Some I recognized from the old photograph with my grandmother. The Survivors Club was coming home. But I could see in their faces that this wasn't just about surviving anymore. We were here to make sure this never happened to anyone else again. The real fight was just beginning. 23 women stood in my grandmother's living room. Some were survivors like me. Others were mothers, sisters, and daughters of victims. All of them were warriors. Ladies, Minerva announced, we've dealt a major blow to this network, but it's not over. They'll regroup, find new victims, move to new cities. Diana stood up, holding a thick folder. Which is why we're not stopping with Martin Thorne's conviction. We're going after the entire operation. Have you ever been part of something bigger than yourself? Something that mattered? The women around me nodded with determination. These weren't victims anymore. They were hunters. Rebecca Walsh is still operating her fake medical practice in 3 states, said Maria Santos, whose sister had been victim number 2. Vincent Torres has helped forge documents for over 40 property thefts. And there are at least 12 other couples running this same scam across the country, added Jennifer Kim, Amy Foster's best friend. The scope was staggering. Marcus and Eleanor weren't just criminals. They were part of an organized network that had been destroying families for decades. Like this video if you believe in the power of people fighting back together. So what do we do? Asked Sarah's mother, a quiet woman named Helen who'd been carrying grief for 8 years. Minerva smiled. We do what your grandmother started, Sarah. We create a network that's stronger than theirs. We protect future victims, gather evidence, and make sure law enforcement can't ignore us. A few of us are lawyers now, Diana added. Some work in law enforcement. Others are in social services, banking, medical fields. We have resources they don't expect. I thought about my grandmother's letter, about how she'd faced this same evil 40 years ago. But she'd been alone. We weren't. My house, I said suddenly. Grandma always said this house had good bones. What if we made it our headquarters? Share this video if you think one person's courage can inspire a movement. The energy in the room shifted. I could see it in their faces. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about building something that would outlast all of us. The Rose Blackwood Foundation, Minerva said softly. A network to protect women from predatory marriages and financial abuse. Helen, Sarah's mother, walked over to my grandmother's portrait on the mantel. She'd be so proud, she whispered. But just as we were celebrating our plans, my phone rang. Detective Martinez's name appeared on the screen. I answered on speaker. Detective? Sarah, we have a problem. Martin Thorne escaped during transport to the courthouse. The room went silent. He's armed, extremely dangerous, and he's likely heading your way. Outside, I heard the sound of gravel crunching in my driveway. Marcus stood on my grandmother's porch, no longer the charming man I'd married. His face was twisted with rage and desperation. Through the window, I could see he was holding something in his hand. Come out, Sarah, he shouted. Let's finish this. 23 women surrounded me. But I knew this confrontation was mine to face. Have you ever reached the moment where you had to choose who you were going to be? Stay inside, I told the others. Call for backup. But I was already walking toward the front door. Diana grabbed my arm. Sarah, don't. This is what he wants. No, I said quietly. What he wants is for me to stay afraid. I'm done being afraid. I opened the door and stepped onto the porch where my grandmother had faced her own monster 40 years ago. Hello, Martin, I said, using his real name. You're looking a little desperate. He raised what I now saw was a gun, but his hand was shaking. You destroyed everything. My whole operation, gone because you couldn't just disappear quietly. Like Amy? Like Sarah? Like Lisa? I took a step closer. I know about all of them, Martin. The whole world knows now. Like this video, if you believe facing your fears makes you stronger than you ever imagined. I could have made you happy, he said, his voice cracking. We could have had a good life together. Built on lies and murder? I shook my head. That's not happiness. That's not love. You don't even know what love is. Behind him, I could see police cars surrounding the property. Detective Martinez was positioning officers, but I knew they were waiting for my signal. My grandmother faced someone just like you, I continued. You know what she learned? Bullies are always cowards underneath. His hand steadied on the gun, finger moving toward the trigger. Share this video if you believe love is always stronger than hate. The difference between you and my grandmother's enemy, I said calmly, is that her house has a secret you don't know about. I pressed a button hidden in the porch column, something my grandmother had installed after her own encounter with evil. Floodlights blazed on from every angle, blinding Marcus momentarily. In that second of confusion, Detective Martinez's team moved. Drop the weapon. Now. Marcus spun around, realizing he was surrounded, and made one final desperate choice. He turned the gun on himself. No more victims, he whispered, and pulled the trigger. Comment below if you think some stories end exactly the way they should. 6 months later, I stood in my grandmother's garden, now transformed into the Rose Blackwood Foundation headquarters. 23 women had become 230. Our network spanned 12 states. We'd prevented 43 predatory marriages, helped convict 37 criminals, and saved millions of dollars in stolen assets. But the best part wasn't the justice we'd served. It was the love we'd built. Mrs. Henderson brought me a cup of tea as I watched our newest group of survivors planning their own counterattacks against the men who'd tried to destroy them. Your grandmother would be so proud, she said. I smiled, touching the antique key I now wore around my neck. I think she knew this would happen. Some houses hold the power of generations of strong women. A car pulled up, and Detective Martinez got out, followed by a woman I didn't recognize. She was young, scared, but walking with determination toward our front door. Another survivor. Another warrior in training. Ready to save another life?
Mrs. Henderson asked.
I was. We all were. Because sometimes the best revenge is building something beautiful from the ashes of what tried to destroy you. And sometimes love really does win.